turn it over to our team from Bridges. Go ahead, ladies.
Thanks, Deb. Hi, everyone. Shout out to Hamilton, Ontario. We're just around the corner.
That's great.
So thank you so much to all of you for joining us today. We're thrilled to be part of the AbleNet University and get this opportunity to share with you all the work that we have done over the last 3 years. And we've done this to ensure that all our students with complex challenges get to participate actively and meaningfully in all the new coding fun that's happening in classrooms around the world, as we can see from your introductions in the chat. We absolutely love to talk about this and can go on for days, but we won't, I promise. We know that we don't have that long, but at least for the next hour, we're going to attempt to showcase everything that we can and answer all your questions so that you can feel as passionate as we do and inspired to make coding accessible to every single one of your students as well. I think we already covered this part. So again, if you have a question, please throw it into the chat. My name is Leanne Husk. I am here today with the lovely Christy McDonald and Susie Blackstien-Adler. Together, we make up the Debugged development team from Bridges, Canada. And for the past 2.5 years or so-ish, we have spent a lot of time together. And most of it's been researching and writing and rewriting and playing and testing and connecting with students, educators, and other professionals in education all over North America to gather everything that we need to bring this curriculum to you today. And it's been such an exciting journey. We look really forward to sharing it with you. And every time that people listen, we just get so excited. So now that you know just a smidge about us, we would like to know a little bit about the people that are here today. So if you would take just a minute to answer the poll questions that are going to appear on your screen. Christy's posted that just now. There's 2 that we would like you to answer. So you may need to scroll down and hit submit when you're done. I'll give you a minute to do that, and then we'll move on.
I actually only see the 1 poll question here right now. I don't know if they come at different times.
You'll be able to choose the second poll in the drop down when you're ready to launch.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Thanks, Deb. Just going to give it up. I'm going to end that poll. And then I see there's the drop down. Here's the next one. Great.
So the second one is up about robots. So there we go. If you're answering other, if you could throw the other in the chat, that would be great.
Okay, I'm going to end that poll as well. Thank you so much for answering those questions. Are you able to see the results there, Leanne?
I cannot.
I think because we're co-hosts, we see it differently. But we have a lot of people that said other. And a few that said dash and dot, Cubeto, one that said Bluebot. So I'm going to stop sharing now and I'm going to end the polls.
Okay, I saw in the chat that some people wrote that they don't have any specific robots. That's totally fine. I also really liked the number of technologists that were in here because you guys are all over the place. So when we can have an opportunity to inspire people that get to touch a whole lot of different classrooms, that's pretty exciting. So thanks for taking that minute to do that. Okay, so let's start with a little bit of background. The idea to create the curriculum that we're going to show you today blossomed a little over 3 years ago when we noticed that coding activities were starting to become a more common occurrence in classrooms. But there was a huge problem. Coding was just not accessible to so many of our students with complex challenges for lots of different and valid reasons. Physical inaccessibility of the hardware and software, and or a lack of resources for our educators to pull it off were just a couple of them. No matter what the reasons were, though, what we started to see as a result was really what kickstarted our mission. All too often, we were seeing our learners being relegated to completely passive roles, like watching their peers or performing absolutely mindless tasks like moving a block without understanding why, or they were simply just the end user of somebody else's creation. None of that was very meaningful or real fun for them. Even worse, others were being removed from the opportunities entirely, and we never, ever like to see that happen. So from all of that, the idea of Debugged was born. Lucky for us, we were fortunate enough to receive a grant from the Canadian federal government's Innovation, Science and Economic Development's Accessible Technology Program, that's a mouthful, so that we could spend the next 3 years with our partners at the Inclusive Design and Research Center at OCAD University and work together on the Coding to Learn and Create project. And that project charged us with the task of developing coding curriculum as well as other coding resources that could be accessible to all students. If you would like to learn more about the project, because we're not going to dive into that today, please feel free to visit the website on the screen. We're also going to post it at the end. While we're going to show you lots of resources that have been developed under this grant, this is really why we're here today, our debugged coding kits. Our family of kits are quickly growing. We're so excited that Dash and Dot has hit the market. This kit is available right now, and many have already been shipped out to schools and classrooms in North America, and they're being implemented and enjoyed already this school year. Cubeto and Kubelets are just about ready to go to print. We've been diligently working on their development and co-designing with staff and students, both before and throughout the pandemic for these two robots, and we're really looking forward to their release this winter. And then our fourth and final debugged coding kit will feature Bluebot. Our goal for its release is going to be in the early spring of 2022. By the end of this presentation, though, we hope that you're going to be able to walk away just as excited as we are to talk about it, with a full understanding of why these kits were created, who they're for specifically, the design principles that guided the development of each and every one, and really get a sense of the breadth of rich resources that they include, and how altogether that makes coding for every student not just possible, but really fun. Throughout this project, we've had the opportunity to be inspired by an incredible range of students. A few of those beautiful faces are smiling at you on the screen. All of the students, of course, have differing abilities. Some of them were nonverbal, both with and without formal communication systems. Some others yet struggled with significant motor, cognitive, or sensory challenges. Collectively, their literacy skills ranged from emergent to early conventional reading and writing levels, and some yet even struggled with behavioral and social emotional challenges. And I think we can all agree that this range of students that we had the opportunity to co-design with are quite representative of the students that are in our classrooms around the world. And that was really, really intentional. We wanted these students to guide our development right from the beginning so that we would get it right. As I mentioned earlier, all our debugged coding kits were developed through this co-design approach. We also ensured that our experiences varied like learning environments do as well. So we hosted sessions in general and special education classes, as well as summer camps, and even did some virtually throughout the pandemic. Today, as we walk you through all that Debug'd has to offer, we're going to share with you some stories from the trenches, because we want you to have the chance to see and hear about the great wow moments that we got to experience firsthand. And there's really no better way to do that, we feel, than to let these stories be told by the students and our educational partners themselves. Coding instruction isn't just about learning Python or JavaScript. There's so much other rich learning that happens. And our code design rock stars represent all of our students in classrooms who face barriers every day that require persistence in and strategies for problem solving. These students also need to develop the metacognitive skill of giving instructions to one another. And we know that by experience, it's much easier to do something yourself than to try to explain it to someone else. However, for our particular group of students, their only choice is to direct a partner to carry out a specific task for them. And what a better way to develop and master that skill than with an engaging activity that involves an awesome robot. The development of collaboration and communication skills will also support this group of students at school and in the community, both today and in the future. They will also benefit from the empowerment that results in creating something independently, and they're going to need lots of practice with technology, which is going to continue to be an enabler for them in the future. Of course, as coding becomes more and more part of our regular curriculum, and the conversation around the lunchroom table is about the new robot or the new application that everybody's playing with, this group of students definitely need to be part of that conversation, and they have a right to be. All of those things are the soft skills that we like to refer to as the coding to learn skills. And we believe that they are just as important, or potentially even more important, than the learning to code skills. With a focus on supporting students who have complex learning needs in inclusive settings, as well as in special education settings, we were guided by the principles of universal design for learning. In order to ensure that we incorporated multiple means of engagement, we included ideas and materials to assist teachers in the planning and preparing of students for coding activities. In order to address the multiple means of representation, we designed lessons and strategies and materials with a wide range of learners in mind. And we offer instruction using multiple forms of media with supports for individual learners. We were very deliberate too about building and activating background knowledge so that students are able to connect what they already know to the new learning in coding activities. We know that learners differ in the ways that they can navigate a learning environment and express what they know as well. So providing options for action and expression was absolutely essential. Next, what you're going to hear is Christy and Susie are going to take you through and show you how we packaged all of this up into a comprehensive curriculum that offers both supports to educators and to students.
So this is the product of that UDL approach that Leanne just described. And we're going to help you understand all that our debugged kits include. There are 3 components to every single debugged kit: the curriculum guide, the bin, and the digital content. Now we're going to take a look at each of the components, and we're going to highlight materials that are found in both Debugged for Dash and Dot, as well as some of our newly developed coding kits. Now, while each of our coding kits have certain characteristics in common, you'll notice that the curriculum guides will differ, as well as some of the materials and supports, and they will all be specific to the application that they're supporting. We've also created a training series for educators to help them with implementation. We know that educators really benefit from some supports during the implementation process. And so this training series consists of a set of learning modules and is delivered in an asynchronous format, which allows educators to learn in small chunks at times that will be convenient for them. So let's look at each component of the Debugged coding kits, starting with the curriculum guide. The curriculum guide thoughtfully guides every aspect of lesson instruction. A lesson overview provides a clear understanding of the lesson structure. The scope and sequence maps out all of the coding concepts that are covered in the curriculum, and ideas are provided to ensure that all students are active participants in every lesson. Here's a list of the lessons that we cover in each curriculum. There are 14 lessons for the dash and dot curriculum, 5 for Cubeto, and 9 for Kubelets. We'll talk about the lesson structure in a moment. Now, depending on the students, the amount of time that you spend teaching coding each day, one lesson could take anywhere from a day to several days. On the right side is a list of the appendices for dash and dot. Other kits will have small differences. Here's a close-up of the scope and sequences that you'll find in each of the kits. You'll notice that each coding kit begins with lessons that ensure an understanding of some foundational concepts, such as what is a robot, directionality, and categorization. So here are the coding concepts, both foundational and coding, that are covered in Cubeto. This application allows teachers to cover those early coding concepts for our young learners. The coding lessons for both Kubelets and dash and dot cover a greater scope of coding concepts based on the complexity of those applications themselves. The scope and sequence helps teachers to understand the different concepts that are covered and in which lessons you'll find them. Now, every lesson in our debugged coding kits follows the same structure. This predictable format supports both the teacher, who may be new to coding, as well as the students, and it follows best practices for developing conceptual understanding in students with complex needs. Teaching all the components of the lesson as they're laid out here ensures that students have multiple opportunities to learn about and apply each coding concept. This lesson structure was informed by thought leaders who have developed curricula for this population of students. Now, during the winter and spring of 2021, we had the privilege of doing some co-design and providing remote coaching to a teacher in Waterloo, Ontario, as she implemented Debugged for Dash and Dot and Debugged for Kubelets. Now, our aim for this co-design was to determine if the lessons and the supports that were created for Debugged would support teachers in providing coding instruction to their students. Here's Kathleen reflecting on her experiences and the ways in which the debugged curriculum guide supported her implementation.
Each lesson is like very detailed. So I feel like as a teacher, even new to coding, you would never get lost. You wouldn't be confused about what you needed to teach or where you needed to go or why something was important to teach or explain. So it was very accessible from a teacher's perspective, regardless of your experience. I also really liked how the lessons were designed. They were in a very specific order, and everything that you taught in that order made sense. I think that I probably would have rushed through learning way more quickly, and I wouldn't have taken my time with the lessons if I didn't have the curriculum. Like if I was just doing this on my own and creating my own lessons, I think I would have just been like, okay, this block does this and this block does that, and like let's put it together, and would have stuck with the code instead of bringing the world into it as well. How many connections that you could make with coding is really incredible, and I wouldn't have thought of half of these ideas had I not had the curriculum support. I think that as coming from a math background, I usually am so focused on making sure I get through the curriculum and students can do these things. And I always struggle with taking a step back and bringing in the whole world in the bigger picture. And I think that this program really pushed me to do that. And I feel like I'm a much better teacher because of it. I also really liked how many opportunities for creativity there were in the curriculum. One of my most memorable is storytelling with Dot, and matching the lights and sounds to a story that they told. It just really makes it a lot of fun when you can get students to add their own personal touch to whatever they're learning. Because the curriculum, yes, it's laid out in lessons, but because it's like you don't have to do lesson one day. It's not an hour lesson. That lesson takes as long as it takes, and you decide how long it takes. And there were so many ideas. Like at the end of every lesson, there's always here are some extension ideas that you could bring into, like if you were in elementary school, like drama class or gym class, or just walking out to recess, or all of these other classes that you could bring in to that lesson, or continue practicing that skill in other classes. So the cross-curricular applications are there. And they're very accessible. There's a list at the end of every lesson. It's great.
So now it's time for some of the fun stuff. What's inside the bin? Here are all of the printed materials that are found inside that bin for Debugged for Dash and Dot. We'll look carefully at the types of materials you'll find in all 3 of the coding kits. So you can expect that some of the materials will be seen in all of the debugged coding kits, such as student feedback forms and some of the posters and the right-left bracelets that you see in the Dash and Dot and Cubetto kits. We also provide AAC boards that include the same core vocabulary for every kit, but the fringe vocabulary is specific to each application. All of the symbol-supported materials were created with widget symbols. Symbol-supported vocabulary cards and category cards for Dash and Dot were created. And again, the vocabulary is specific to each application. Of course, instructional and student materials will be specific to each robot application as well. So for example, printed Blockly blocks are used during the planning stage for our Debugged for Dash and Dot. In Cubetto, planning materials include the control panel, a miniature map, command blocks, and target cards. And in Cubelets, we provide copies of the Cubelets on cards. Other student reference materials are provided that support different aspects of each application, and instructional and student materials will vary from kit to kit. Materials are often provided with different levels of scaffolding to ensure that teachers can meet the needs of a range of students. So here are some of some images to show those materials in action. On the left, you can see the symbol-supported poster that reminds students how to care for robots effectively. The symbol-supported vocabulary cards and category cards for Dash and Dot are explicitly taught and then posted so that students can continue to refer to them throughout the coding lessons. Here's a picture of Joseph carefully planning the route that Dash will follow to complete a coding challenge. He uses the arrows that you see on the table to plot out his route. And then he carefully adds that to his device. Reference cards and right-left bracelets are available to support his process. Brian uses similar materials, and then he becomes the robot to practice his code. And then Angel completes a challenge that you see in the bottom picture by carefully planning her program and then adding appropriate parameters to her code. With these supports and materials, every one of these students was successful in coding their robots. Now, each debugged coding kit also contains a wide range of materials that are provided digitally. I'm going to highlight just a few today. Whole class digital slides are provided in each debugged coding curriculum to guide lesson instruction and concept development. These slides are available in PowerPoint, but are compatible in Google Slides and Smart Notebook. Examples of each coding kit are shown here on the screen. There are also many printable resources that come in the digital content that support whole class lesson instruction, such as visual schedule cards and reference materials to support behavior and self-regulation. Some of these materials also come in the bin, but teachers often want to make copies. A wide array of student materials accompany the lessons and are found in the digital content. For example, AAC boards with core and fringe vocabulary are provided in a number of different layouts. Games, challenge cards, sequencing and patterning activities, reference materials, planning manipulatives, and individual activities with different levels of scaffolding are all included in the digital content. These materials are used during the practice and apply portions of the lessons. Now, for students who require the use of alternate access, such as switches, joysticks, or eye gaze, we've created adapted materials in Clicker. This way, all students can fully participate in the practice and apply portions of the lessons. Now, they may still require support from a peer or an adult in placing the Blockly blocks on the iPad, or placing the command blocks in the control panel for Cubetto, or moving the cubelets into position. But the important part, the planning and the thinking, is done by the student. Here are examples of these activities from each of the 3 coding kits. And then finally, we've included a social story template so that teachers can customize it and then use it to prepare their students for coding. So now let's put it all together.
So how do all of these materials work? This is what your classroom might look like. During instruction, the teacher will need the curriculum guide to provide them with all the explicit instructions and scripting that is needed to confidently implement coding activities in the classroom. The whole class digital slide deck will both guide instruction and support concept development. Posters are intended to be hung up as they are addressed so that students can be directed to reference them as required. Vocabulary cards are also meant to be posted and remain on display for reference. We continue to add to it as we explicitly teach new vocabulary. So today, we've added the event vocabulary card because it's the new term that we've learned in this lesson. During practice and apply activities, students are provided with Blockly blocks to support thoughtful planning. While some students will be able to use the Blockly blocks to plan and to navigate the Blockly app to execute their plan on their tablets or Chromebooks, Clicker activities are provided for students who require alternate access, so they too have access to all the Blockly blocks they need. AAC materials support communication and collaboration for students who have communication challenges. And tip sheets can be posted or provided to students to support independence and self-regulation when they're working on important collaboration skills.
So now that you've had a chance to see all of the lesson materials, let's take a look at the lessons that they support and break those down a little bit. The first lesson in all of our coding kits deals with the concept of what is a robot. We've been sensitive to the fact that some of these students are young while some of them are in high school, and so we've provided ideas for activities for both age groups. The second lesson for Cubeto, Dash and Dot, and Bluebot focuses on developing an understanding of directions, specifically turning left and right. To do this, we activate and build background knowledge by viewing a GPS video and speaking about directions that students may have had experience with in their family car. And then they engage in unplugged activities. We support students, as Christy said, while they practice and apply with reference cards, arrows, stickers, and those red and yellow bracelets, the colors of which have been chosen to represent the command blocks in Cubeto and which also support our students who have CVI. In Cubelets, where moving right and left don't apply, one of the foundational lessons deals with the principles of construction. So after laying this important foundation in each of our kits, we move on to the new coding concepts. As always, we introduce new concepts to students by connecting the concept to experiences that they haven't had. And if they haven't had any of these experiences, then we build that background knowledge together. And then we look at how that applies to the actual robot. So here's an example. When teaching sequencing and debugging, we connect the concept of a sequence in code to sequences that students have had experience with in their daily lives, like washing hands or making a pizza. And then we connect that idea to following steps in order, like giving directions to Dash or to Dot. We start by using arrows on the floor for Dash in order to make that sequence concrete, and then students can see where a problem might occur in a very concrete way and debug or fix it. Finally, we apply that to the robot application. So this is what this might look like with Dash and Dot. And if we take a look at Cubelets or at Cubeto. So in Cubeto and Cubelets, of course, the same principles apply, but the actual materials will be different because of the application. Each debug coding kit contains slides, as Christy mentioned, to guide and scaffold the instruction of important new concepts. And here's an example from Dash and Dot. When we teach conditionals, we begin by providing real-world examples of the coding concept, and then show what the concept would look like in Blockly for a sequence with Dash or Dot. Here's an example from Cubeto. When teaching the concept of functions, we begin by helping students to understand and identify repeated patterns. We pull that part out, the part that repeats that is, and show them that that is called a function in Cubeto and can be represented using the function block. In Cubelets, we help students understand the concept of weighted averages by comparing data flow in Cubelets to the strength of a Wi-Fi signal in their home. Then we show how this flow of information or data looks in a Cubelets robot. The next slide shows Josiah. He's one of our campers who's applied what he's learned about building a sequence that includes parameters. So on the top right, you can see an example of some of the printed materials that are included in our kits. And in the bottom, you can see some of the vocabulary cards and reference cards, which you also note on the floor beside Josiah. In this image activity, he was challenged to create a path for Dash that included all of the program cabins available at camp. And then he was challenged with creating a sequence for Dash to move him through the path to pass through each of those cabin areas. In the next video clip, you'll see Brody, who has physical, visual, and communication challenges. In this clip, he's using the target cards provided to help students to focus on the beginning and end point of Cubeto's travels, but here they're also being used for communication by his counselor using his established mode of communication. So let's take a look.
And choose and where we want our robot to end up, okay? So these are your options. The sandcastle, the mountains, the tree,
All right, so I want you to tell me, you've already
or the
gone
boat.
forward. So if Cubetta goes
Okay, you're
forward,
gonna tell me which one you want. The boat,
what does he have to do next to get to the 9?
the tree,
Okay, so can you do it? Turn which way?
the sandcastle,
Okay, do you remember which one?
Okay.
Wait,
That
wait,
looks like
maybe
a
not.
possibility.
or the mansion? The sandcastle?
You guys.
All right. Okay.
On the right-hand side of this slide, Brody is actually testing another sequence that he's created. Now, sometimes the answer to problems is in the bin, and sometimes it's just not. In this case, Brody's visual field was up and to the left. He couldn't see any movement of a robot on the table. So here we're using the camera of an iPad to project the movement of Cubetto so that he can see it on the screen on the wall.
Okay,
In this image on the left, you can see one of our campers who is creating a sequence for Dash using a wipe-off marker and the laminated Blockly blocks that have widget symbols on them. He's also using the light reference guide on the left-hand side in order to guide his choices as well as guiding his writing. There are students who can't hold a wipe-on marker, and so those students have access to option items that they can use Velcro to attach to the Blockly blocks. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you see Cole, who couldn't manage a wipe-off marker or the option cards. He uses a joystick for powered mobility, and in this shot, he's being introduced to the clicker activity that he can use a joystick with in order to do his planning for Cubetto. So next, the fun. We're going to show you a video of our students from Waterloo Catholic District School Board in some of the co-design that we did this year. The first part illustrates co-design with Leanne in a grade 2 classroom, a general education classroom. And this particular classroom had one student who was our target student, but we quickly learned that a number of the students in that classroom had needs that were supported by the scaffolding in the lessons as well as the adapted materials. In the second part of the video, you'll see co-design that took place with a teacher and her congregated class, Kathleen, who you'll recognize, with her high school students. Over the course of the semester, they worked first with Debug Dash and Dot, and then some of her students moved on to using the Kubelets curriculum. The students were attending school, but they couldn't share materials. And so they were able to take advantage of all of the scaffolded lessons as well as the adapted materials, but were not able to engage in small group activity and make use of all of the tip sheets that support small group collaboration and communication. So let's have a look.
Good job, Lucas. Yeah, good job. So now,
Why, Lukey? The same what? Color.
good job, Lucas. Predicting? Sure. What do you think that block?
Hello, my name is Joseph. Hello, my name's Brian.
Hello, my name is Mateo.
My robot started to talk. Robert Ducky, you're the one. Turn left.
Turn left. Number one.
Good time. What color is the shirt?
Good done? Oh, that was great. Can I see your code? Can you show me your code? Oh, wow. Lots of different things.
You say water? Yeah. And then the last time we get to drink our water.
Yep. Ready?
Use neither do horses or goats.
Oh, so maybe
Besides
it's like
dinosaurs or
how do you get Dash to move? All right, go ahead, Angel. Yep. Did he stop? Yeah, look. Good job. Well done, Michael. Okay, thank you so much.
I'm finished.
Woohoo! Good job, Kate. Well done. Okay, you watching me? Go!
Whoa. Go! Oh, look, this dad's got a head start like Sonic. Oh,
That's cool. Ryan, what's this one? Your drive and your sense block. Excellent. Is it moving towards or away from your hand? Whoa, Brian! Spinning! Okay, Joseph, show us your spin. Oh, you're telling it how to spin.
goodness.
Turning the knob, that's right. Oh, you built a lighthouse. The light's moving around and around. That's cool, eh? Excellent.
Was a leader and
So here Vanessa speaks about the collaborative experience and how they've supported her grade 2 students.
was a leader and he worked with Lucas, who was my autistic student. And Jack just took Lucas under his wing and taught Lucas. Didn't do it for him. And he would talk it out with him, but Lucas would actually do it. It was amazing, the leadership role that Jack took on. And then Lucas was getting it and then could do it himself. And I was like, what is happening here?
And here Kathleen reflects on the skills that she's seen developing in her high school students.
So we had like, I think lesson 4 or something was the directional language one, and we took a week or 2 on it. And so just watching students continue to practice and continue to work through it, give up, run away, come back, try again the next day, and then finally get it. I know like the whole time you know that they can get it, but just watching them build that confidence and actually do it, and then it's just like such a proud teacher moment. And then one day, a student went on and just discovered angles on their own. And they said, I can do this turn and this turn with this angle, and it still makes this path. And just seeing, I didn't even teach about angles other than we turn right and left. That's a 90-degree angle. Like I mentioned it briefly, but this student explored on their own with that specific code, and then just to see the light bulb and to see their own self-discovery. And then they could even explain it as well because they had learned it on their own. So that like self-discovery journey is watching it in action, not just talking about it in pedagogical terms, like actually seeing it was really cool.
So at the very beginning, I mentioned that the debugged kits were part of the Coding to Learn and Create project, and that there were other things on the go. And the next thing we want to show you is this, Weavly, which is also being developed as part of the project. Our partners at the IDRC are developing this piece simultaneously at the same time as we are developing our kits. And we thought today what we might do is give you a little quick tour of Weavly. In general terms, Weavly is an accessible software interface that's currently under development. And it is currently available right now, but it is still in beta form, and it's constantly changing as updates are made. Eventually, the full version will be available for all students, freely available around the globe. And will really benefit students who have visual, physical, and cognitive challenges. When it's complete, we also hope that it is going to pair with both Dash and Bluebot so that students can fully access the Weavly site and control their robot if they aren't able to do so on its original platforms. So what I'm going to do is give you a little tour, if Christy would be so kind. Thank you, my friend. And I'm going to go here. So I'll move that out of the way. So here's the Weavly interface. The URL we will provide at the end, but it is create.weavly.org. This interface, like I said, is still in its beta version, but it is kind of a rough outline of what you're going to see at the end. So I'm going to kind of take you for a little walkthrough. Up here, there's 3 components to the Weavly site. There is the actions panel over here on the left, the scene area up here at the top, and the program area down at the bottom. There are lots of accessibility features being embedded into this platform. Most of them that are currently available are up here at the top. This very first icon right here are going to give you the keyboard shortcuts that are compatible with a number of screen readers that are currently available and that are commonly used by users with vision impairments. I'm not going to go through that in great detail, but if that's something that interests you, please feel free to explore. The second thing I'm going to show you is the sound feature. So screen readers, they will read everything on the screen, but if a student's not using screen readers and they would still like the feedback, the oral feedback to be provided with them, they can turn the sound on. So I'm going to do that so that you can see how that works. And then we also have various themes already made. So this is the default theme you see in front of you. There are high contrast themes. For obviously, this is supporting students with visual impairments. There is the dark theme. That's kind of my favorite. There's a grayscale. I'm going to put it on dark just so everybody can see it. Over here in the actions panel, a couple of things to note. Right now, because of it's in the beta version, there's only 4 movements: forward, backward, left, and right. And you can see there's varying degrees of each. We do hope in the future that there is going to be more actions available, like conditionals and functions, but this is what's available currently. Once we start populating the actions panel, it could get visually overwhelming for some students. So we have embedded the ability to be able to narrow down what is viewable in the actions panel. So both visually and for students who may not be able to handle all of that cognitive load, educators will be able to narrow down the actions in the panel and just focus on those specific actions with students. The scene here, we've already looked at all of the themes as far as the interface goes, but we also have fun themes that can fit right inside of the scene itself. So up here in the top right, I just have the default sketch pad selected, but you can see that there's a space theme, there's a jungle theme, and there's a deep ocean theme. So you can choose any one of those and note that your little robot changes according to the theme. And this is just a few that are under development right now. In the bottom of this sidebar, we can also position our robot into any starting place by either moving it manually using the arrows, or we could even go and type in the letters and numbers of the grid and have the robot move to that place itself. Also in the scene, we have this pen feature. It can be turned off or on. The pen will draw a line that the path of the path that the robot takes as it's moving, and this will refresh the scene back to its default positions. Finally, in the program area, that's where we build our code. We can do that in a couple of different ways. The first way, we can select the movement we want and then select
one square selected.
Well, I think I forgot to share my sound, but it said movement forward, one selected. And then I can hit the position that I want that action to go in.
Added movement forward, one square.
I can also hold the click and drag it down.
Movement forward, one square.
And then I'll maybe do a turn.
Movement, turn left, 9. Added movement, turn left. Movement.
And I'll add a couple more forwards.
No movement selected.
Whoops.
Movement for added movement forward, one square.
Okay, I'm just going to go back and share my sound so you can hear it. Okay, one more. I'll do one more. Just
no movement selected.
Whoop.
Movement forward, one. Added movement forward, one square.
You can hear what it does. Okay, so click and drag or tap and tap. These nodes here are nice and big to create big targets for students to be able to move things to, but if they don't need those big targets, this button here will minimize those targets. We can still put things there, it's just they're not really big, and that creates a little bit more space in the program area. Of course, the delete bin will delete my program entirely. If I want to change something about my program, I can click on the actions, and I have a small pop-up panel which will delete that action. I can swap it out with another action, or I can move that action to be earlier or later in the program. So if I want to swap it out, I just hit the swap icon.
Movement backward, movement forward, one square replaced with backward, one square.
And then grab the action. When I'm ready to play it, I go down here. This is the speed bar, so this will execute the program faster or slower. And of course, the play icon will let it go. Because I have my pen down, you'll be able to see the path it takes. And then finally, there's a share button in the bottom right-hand corner so that students can share the unique URL for their creation with you, either through an email or Google Classroom or whatever platform it is that you're using. I'm going to stop my share so Christy can have that back. One more thing to note about Weavely is that when we were testing this with some of our students, we were working with a particular student that was using using switches to interact with the environment. And she had made a comment because after one of our activities, which was to create something, to draw something on the screen. So she created a program with the pen down, ran the program, and it would draw something on the screen. And after she completed the activity, she had made the comment that that was the first time that she ever had the ability to draw before. So that was a really neat experience for us. And we thought that was something that really really pumped us up and made us even more excited about seeing the end result of this software. As we mentioned earlier, our 4th curriculum is currently under development. We're about 3 lessons in. Debugged with Bluebot is scheduled for release in the spring of 2022. What's really exciting about this development is that we have formed a partnership with TTS. And they are collaborating with us, and everything that we are sharing with them, they're sharing back with us, and we're really able to expand our development because of the collaboration that we have with them. We hope that everything that we've shared with you today has inspired you to join us in providing some rich, inclusive coding experiences for your students in your classrooms using Debugged. In case you still need just a little bit more convincing though, we're gonna let Chris Runstedler, who is a special education assistive technology resource teacher at the Waterloo Catholic School Board that you saw the students from. She's going to share with you some of her final thoughts about her perspective as a debugged user.
The toolkit was provided, and it was provided for all students. So no matter if the student was a highly capable learner or a learner that very, very much struggled and needed an alternative curriculum. So all of the resources, it was clearly outlined, the materials were clearly provided, and it made it very easy for the teacher then to learn how to code with her class and to have the students all actively engaged. And I think that's what made it so amazing, is it really coding to learn and learn to code now became accessible for all students. No one was a passive attendee anymore.
And that's a wrap, folks. So we came in under an hour, as I promised. But we hope that this is just the beginning of the journey for you. And we would love it if you would keep in touch with us. On the screen in front of you, you can see our emails at the top of the screen. You are welcome to use any or all of them to reach out to us with any questions that you might still have. We will take some time to answer some of your questions from both the chat and after we're finished here. You can follow all of our happenings in, we have less than a year in our project. And if you want to see what we're up to, you can go to the Code to Learn and Create project website at codelearncreate.org. You can see that link on the screen, and the blog there will give you all of the updates on what we're doing. Of course, you can go to Weavly and play with the accessible coding interface that I just gave you a quick tour of. You can keep an eye on it as it continues to develop. And you also notice on that site that there is an open education repository that is being populated. And we hope in the future that we're going to be able to open that up so that you can contribute your great creations as well. We would also love it if you would follow us on social media at Debugged Coding. And of course, you can visit our website, debugged.ca, where you will find dedicated information about all of our debugged products. And if you have any deeper inquiries for our sales team, you can email them at info@bridges-canada.com. That was a lot to cover in a short time. But we still have a few minutes to spare. So there was a couple of questions in the chat. One was with regards to the training series that Christy mentioned at the beginning. Do you want to tap on that? She wanted to know how we access the training series. Christy?
So the training series is an asynchronous course that is for sale through Bridges, and it is accessed through a platform that we use called Teachable. And once you purchase the course, you will receive a code to join the course, and then you can access the modules at your own pace at any time.
And really the core, let me just add that this course is meant to guide people in their beginning stages. The curriculum guide is really quite explicit, but there are people who really benefit from having some coaching in the beginning stages and unpacking the kit and understanding what a lesson is all about. And so that's what that course currently has been designed to support. And of course, we at Bridges we're all on the professional learning team at Bridges, and we love doing training and coaching with teams. And so we're happy to customize something if it's not, if the current asynchronous course is not meeting needs.
Another question, if you guys want to field it, is Amy was asking about ordering the kits. How many robots does it come with? Do you want to kind of elaborate on how that works?
So if you go to debug.ca, you will see different options. We are in the process of developing those options for Kubelets and Cubetto, but certainly for Debugged with Dash and Dot, you'll see that you can order different varieties. For example, we just had a school board that's purchased 2 dashes and a Wonder Pack for each of their classrooms with 1 debugged kit. So it really, you can mix and match and decide what is going to meet your needs. I will say that the Dash and Dot kit lessons include Dash and Dot, but you can do everything with Dash that you can do with Dot if you don't have Dot.
Heidi had asked about clicker licenses and whether we need access to those licenses in order to access the activities. It was answered in the chat, but just to elaborate that, yeah, you would need to have access to the software in order to open and play the activities. But
it's just like getting a document in Microsoft Word. You need Microsoft Word to open it. It's that same idea.
Yeah. And then Anne asked about working with students who are visually impaired or blind. Is there room to place Braille on items?
So I answered in the chat, but what I said was that we have a document in the curriculum, in each curriculum guide, that's called Insuring Participation, and it goes one step further than our scaffolding within the lessons and the adapted materials to provide some other ideas for supporting communication, for supporting students who have visual impairments. And certainly we didn't think of everything, and you will get creative and think of your own ideas, but some of those include Braille, like a Braille card for the Kubelets that because some of them are distinguished by color, that type of thing, putting Braille on all of the command blocks in Cubetto, those kinds of things. And in the Cubetto kit, there is actually a list of all of the labels that in Word format for embossing purposes.
I think that's all the questions. Erica made a comment about what fun. Thank you, and you're welcome. And yes, oh my gosh, we cannot tell you how much fun we have had. It has been so incredibly rewarding and enjoying it. I think we've enjoyed it as much as the kids have, maybe even more. So we certainly would recommend, if you want more fun, this is definitely the road to go down. If you have any other questions, please enter them in the chat. Otherwise, I think that's all we have. If you want to see anything a little bit more extensively, we're happy to do so.
And as Leanne said, we love talking about this. So if you want to chat tomorrow, just reach out to us through one of our emails.
All right, well, I don't see anything else in the chat right now. I thank you so much for all of the great information, and I wish you all the best with all of your development.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deb.
And we will end the webinar there. Have a great afternoon.
All right, take care.
Thanks, everybody.